Hello, I'm Dick.
And I'm Eric, and we're the Annuity guys.
Well, Eric, inflation has been pretty tame recently.
It's almost it's almost non-existent. Why do we have to talk about inflation?
Well, a lot of folks will remember the Nixon days that we're talking to when we used price controls and everything, and we were seeing 10% inflation annually. But a lot of folks don't realize that prior to our Great Recession, that our financial crisis, that we were experiencing about the past 40 years, we had over 4% inflation.
It was significantly higher than what we've had recently.
Yes.
In fact, so now the discussion becomes, with all the quantitative easing we've had kind of recently, and as they get ready to start letting these bonds come back out onto the market, well, what's really going to happen with inflation? Are we going to have the kind of the hyperinflation that we had during the Carter era?
Well, I think there's economists on both sides, and some believe that that the Fed can continue to control inflation in the way it's been so low. But a lot of economists figure just the opposite, that we've set the stage for inflation, and if not some kind of hyperinflation, at least greatly increased inflation.
Right. They've been trying to really dial in that number and set for a specific amount.
Yes.
The problem is how much tinkering can they still do to the system before the system just takes on and does its own thing, irregardless of how much tinkering they've done at the
Right. And so I think that folks are looking for a way to hedge against inflation, hoping that inflation doesn't get out of control. But if you just stop and think about 5% inflation, and there have been there was a 30-year average over the last 100 years where we actually had an excess of 5% inflation. So you think in terms of what 5% does. And if you look at what a dollar buys today, 10 years from now, it takes $1.63.
Well, in your example there, when you start out, you talked about 30 years. And if you think about a typical retiree and what they're going to have in their retirement, you're talking about a 30-year time span. And what a dollar buys today. Thinking 30 years forward to have that same lifestyle, if you're going to need the same amount of just dollars in today's dollars, what's it going to be in 30 years? And even a reasonable level of inflation, if it's a 2.8, it was still double over like 28 years and during that retirement time. So if you need $100,000 in today's dollars, it's good likelihood that's going to be $200,000 by the time you're done with retirement, if everything stays according to Hoyle.
Well, and even like the 5% we're talking about, if you only needed say $20,000 in supplemental income, and 10 years later, that's going to be almost $32,000 that you need in supplemental income just at 5%. And I realize that it could be 3% or
it could be anywhere,
or it could be anywhere in there. It could be over 5%. So not having a plan B, so to speak, for inflation, I think would be very foolhardy.
So we've talked. We got fixed index annuities up here. We haven't even dealt with. We've been dealing with inflation. But so if you talk about using a fixed indexed annuity, in this case, typically what we're doing is using something that's going to allow us to turn on an income in the future.
Correct.
So it's using the income guarantees, the income rider pieces,
and
saying let's project forward using that 5 or 3% or whatever we expect that number to be, and then project forward and have a annuity that can be turned on in 5 or in 10 or in 15 years.
Exactly, laddering those annuities. And the guarantees are what's so attractive about these annuities, especially for income, like you were stating. So the beauty of that is that you can guarantee that it's going to roll up at 6%, 7%, 8%, and you're going to be able to rely on that increased income laddered out over, like you say, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. There's also another aspect to these fixed indexed annuities that's very attractive, and that is that they can't go backwards. So even if you're just using them for the growth aspect, it's not like you're going to have a stock portfolio that in your 401k, and your 401k now becomes a 201k. It's half of what it was. So you're at least going to maintain, and you're going to have an opportunity for maybe somewhere between 4 and 6% growth.
If you're choosing choosing the right annuity, obviously rates has some play in here, and as things, and it usually keeps pace a little bit within the inflation number. As those rates continue to increase, so do the growth potential of the annuity. So, and the opportunity to do better than the bank, get something that's a great
Yes.
hedge, whether it be on the income side or the growth side.
Right.
You know, something that's out there. And there's obviously numerous annuities in numerous ways. We've talked a little
Yes.
bit about laddering options, but there's also opportunities either with indexed or with immediate annuities that you could have cost of living adjustments built into the annuity, whether it be triggered off of the CPI or triggered off of some sort of growth tied to an index.
Right.
There's ways to hedge
Yes.
utilizing just the annuity itself as well to get that increasing income potential.
And anytime you start an annuity off, I mean, the vast majority of them, when you start them off with a cost of living increase, you have to start your income, it's ratcheted a little bit lower, it's ratcheted down by the insurance company.
Yeah.
But again, it's something that you have to just do the math on.
Right.
And I think one of the keys there, Eric, is longevity.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yes.
Yeah, if the chances are you're going to live longer or live a good long life, obviously what we're talking about here, 30 years down the road, it's going to be significantly higher for your what you're going to need in today's dollars at that point in time. And so by actually projecting forward and taking that concern of the longevity and increasing cost off the table, it can be extremely powerful.
One of the things that I know we enjoy doing, and it's a little bit counterintuitive, but the idea is to really get your money out of the annuity, spend it first, get it out as fast as you can, and then start spending the insurance company's money, because that's a little more fun.
If we're talking about an inflation hedged or an indexed income stream, yes, the earlier you start it, the more ratchets you get. So it's one of those things that, yes, let's start taking the money earlier so we can get through our stuff and get to theirs. So yes.
Right. So, Eric, I know there's a lot of different things that you can do to hedge for inflation. I mean, just to, if you've got your foundational income covered, Social Security, pensions, annuities, this type of thing, you're a lot more comfortable putting money in the market, in the stock market.
That's exactly right.
And being a little bit more aggressive. I mean, not foolish, but aggressive. And not everyone's comfortable with that either. So some people don't want to take any risk. They work too hard for that money. They're not going to go backwards, and they don't have to.
Yeah.
There's other ways to do it. So I think it really gets down to good planning. It's math. It's simple math. And when we start talking about fixed indexed annuities, do you think it really is a good hedge?
I think it's a wonderful hedge. And like we're saying, if you can protect your income and grow the rest, what better way is there?
Well, I agree.